those that are joining for the first time, my name is Jason Swan. I'm here in Portugal, down in the best part of the country, in my slightly biased opinion. I live down in the south. I've been here now for around about 5 years. Previous to Portugal, I was over in the south of Spain. And previous to Spain, as I mentioned, from Manchester in the northwest of England. You may be able to pick up a slight English twang, possibly not. But I'm down here in the south end, and now well, I'm a fully qualified and actually 20 years worth of experience, would you believe, now as a financial planner. And over recent years, have now started to work exclusively with clients looking to achieve residency and citizenship, primarily in Portugal, but also in different parts of the EU. But being in Portugal myself and having been through the legal process to achieve residency here, it is very much my speciality. And whether it's questions you have perhaps around the visas, whether it be around just living in Portugal or any money matters, again, feel free to ask. And it's very rarely any questions I can't answer. Feel free to try and catch me off guard and fire any questions that you have. Hopefully, I can cover off most topics this afternoon. But otherwise, when we're talking about the Golden Visa program, we now, as a group, have submitted over 10% of the world's Golden Visa applications. I personally have done now around four to 500 applications over the last kind of 3 or 4 years in particular. We're seeing an ever-increasing demand for Portugal. We've seen quite a sharp upward spike around November time last year, in particular from the US. With now clients looking for a plan B, which seems to be the most common phrase of late, but more on that as we go. But yeah, otherwise we have maintained a 100% success rate with our applications, and yeah, any topics generally I'll try and cover this afternoon. So that's me. And as far as the service that's provided by Holborn Assets, it is very much a one-stop shop, really. It encompasses all services required, starting from help with finding a suitable investment or donation to qualify for the program. Thereafter, as we begin, we will apply for Portuguese tax numbers for the family, followed by an application for a Portuguese bank account where necessary, the collection of all the documents that's needed for a visa application, of course. There is also an external recommended law firm that works alongside Holborn as part of the process. With Holborn are there to accompany us as part of the biometrics appointment as you're coming over to Portugal. And yeah, you of course have the oversight really of myself and my team to make sure everything goes according to plan and as swiftly and as smoothly as possible. But if you get a chance, feel free to type my name into Google. You'll see lots of content online, lots of information to help with your own due diligence on the program, and also topics around investments and yeah, just general informative, or at least like to think informative information around moving to Portugal. Otherwise, if you're not necessarily sat just on the Portuguese program, you may want to ask around other programs. Portugal is by quite some distance the most popular route into Europe as far as investment programs. It still has the shortest amount of time to achieve permanent residency rights. As of today's date, also the shortest time to achieve citizenship as well, which we'll come on to shortly with some potential changes there. And the minimum investment can be as little as 250,000 euros, which in actual fact is a donation. But for those that are looking to come into Europe, Portugal is very popular, but it's not the only route to Europe. And we're seeing a little bit more traction now for the Italian Golden Visa, also the Hungarian Golden Visa, Greece as well. Again, there are some other variations to that of the Portuguese program. And internationally, if it's not necessarily Europe that you set on, but would like to look at changing your tax residency or perhaps more freedom into another part of the world, then yeah, please ask, and we're happy to send over a further commentary on those programs. But for this evening, we shall focus, of course, on what we've all come for, which is that of Portugal. Now, let's start at the top. So what is the Portugal Golden Visa? It is, in short, kind of like a VIP golden pass for those that want to live, work, or simply retire to Portugal or study in Portugal. Formally, the visa lasts for 2 years, and you can renew that visa for as many times as you like, up until you apply for permanent residency rights, which you can do after 5 years. And once you have permanent residency rights in Portugal, you have basically all the rights of being a Portuguese citizen, apart from you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But otherwise, you have access to the education system, you have access to the healthcare system. And the program has been around now for over 10 years. It was introduced back in 2012. And over that time, it has become increasingly popular with a record-breaking number of applications submitted in 2024. I don't have the 2025 statistics just yet, but I'm pretty confident there'll be a step up on 2024. And what makes the program particularly unique is that it gives investors a chance to achieve residency rights and a path to getting a European passport without the need to actually live in the country. The minimum stay through Portugal is only 2 weeks every 2 years. So as long as you can commit to 2 weeks every 2 years in Portugal, you can have the rights of being a permanent residency and move towards citizenship, whereas you can then live in any European country with a Portuguese passport as well. So it is particularly popular for clients that cannot or perhaps don't want to commit to living in Portugal full time. Those that maybe are not sure if they plan to move to Portugal, but maybe want to be on the path to just having the right to quickly relocate or maybe move towards getting a European passport. And yeah, of course, there are other visa routes for those that do want to spend more than 6 months each year in Portugal. But yeah, the golden visa is very much, like I say, it's more flexible and less committal, shall we say, but ultimately leads to permanent residency rights and citizenship, should you so wish. So yes, that's what entails. And as I mentioned before, the golden visa comes with all of the benefits of being a citizen of Portugal, I should say, being born in Portugal, apart from you cannot vote and you cannot run for president. But you can go to school in Portugal. Of course, the family can go to school in Portugal. And also you can get access to what is one of the world's most highly rated public healthcare systems free of charge as well. There are some tax incentives for new residents. I'm actually going to spend a bit more time on that this afternoon as well. In particular, there is the NHR 2.0 now that has been in place since the beginning of 2024, where residents can apply for tax exemption for up to 10 years on certain overseas income as well. But yeah, all in all, this is all packaged within what's included for being a golden visa holder. Now, just coming back a bit, the latest news on the program before we get into any more of the specifics. Some of you may already had an update from me a couple of weeks back to notify that as of, I would say, literally the beginning of this month, we have seen literally thousands of investors receiving notification for their biometrics appointment. And if you have been tracking the Golden Visa program over recent years, one of the biggest frustrations is the time for applications to be processed and waiting for the biometrics appointment. But it does seem to be now that I mentioned, I think back in May, June time, that the government had announced that they had committed to clearing the backlog of applications by the end of 2025. And based on what we've seen over the past 2 weeks, we're pretty confident now that that should come to fruition. Literally all of our clients have received their biometrics appointment, and investors, that completed their application as late as just October, the investors that made their investment just weeks ago have already now received the biometrics appointment. So this is great news for everyone, both existing investors and new applications as well. And now, optimistically, we can see new applications now being completed within, a 6 to 12 month timeline, if not sooner, which is significantly less than what we've seen over previous years. In other news, of course, we have the ongoing discussion. Actually, as of today, as of this morning, the proposed changes to the timeline to citizenship have landed on the president's desk to assess as to whether or not the timeline to get a passport is going to increase from 5 to 10 years. And if it does, when that law will come into effect and who it will apply to as well. So more to follow on that. We'll find out, I suspect, by the end of next week, we shall know. It is important to note that it is only affecting citizenship applications, which seems to be a misconception from appointments that I've had over the past couple of weeks. But just note that the changes do not affect the Golden Visa program. It is only to those that apply for citizenship. And for those that are applying for the Golden Visa that are interested in Portugal, all the same rules apply, regardless of the changes to citizenship. The minimum stay is to remain the same. The investment categories are staying the same. The investment time frame, again, only needs to stay invested up until when you have permanent residency, which still happens after 5 years. But it is a potential change for citizenship applications, which we shall find out over the next week or so. But again, I won't go into lengthy detail on that, but any queries on that, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. But that's where we're up to. That's the latest news. There's plenty of other headlines that have come up, but those are generally the two hot topics that have come up over the past few weeks. Now, coming back to the Golden Visa, these are the current capital thresholds, or the capital requirements from the investor in order to qualify. Now, as it stands, the minimum capital required to qualify for the visa is with a form of donation. If you're feeling generous and you'd like to support the economy of Portugal, shall we say, you can donate 250,000 euros. All investment categories require a total investment of 500,000 to be made. As of today's date, there are still providers that will offer an upfront fixed return as opposed to a cumulative return over the time frame. Whereas there's a fixed return of 101,000 euros paid upfront with various loan facilities as well, which allow investors to maintain their capital rather than donate and to qualify with 325,000 of their own capital. 325 actually has a return of 375 at the end of the time frame, or investors can qualify with 101 upfront to be returned 500,000 euros at the end. More on those specifics as we go through, but just a quick snapshot as of the current capital requirements as of today's date to qualify for the program. I think I've mixed up a couple of these slides. I've just updated a little bit and I'm jumping around, so bear with me, but I think we'll get in there. So, geographical location of Portugal. You probably don't need me to tell you too much about where we are, but it's surprising actually how many clients have never even been to Portugal that apply for the Golden Visa program. But for reference, I'm down here in the south. The capital, of course, Lisbon. We have Porto up in the north, which are the three most popular parts of Portugal, if you will. But it's important to remember that the Golden Visa doesn't require you to have an address in Portugal. It is designed for investors that don't know if they're going to move full time. But it's just a reference really. If you are looking to move, it's always a good idea to check out all of Portugal. I actually ended up moving to somewhere completely different to where I was expecting in the end. But if you're buying a property here, you do pay quite a lot of property taxes up front. So it's always wise to, be certain where you're going to move to before kind of setting the anchor down, if you will. So, you may want to check out different parts. But yeah, if you want to come and see me, I'm in the south. Majority of, law firms we'll find in Lisbon. And yeah, there you go. That's where we are. Now, the qualification criteria for the visa, there are 5 routes of which you can qualify through as it stands. Number 1 is you can create a business in Portugal, should you wish, and as long as you create 10 jobs as part of that business, you will be rewarded with the golden visa. You can make a donation of 500,000 euros to Portugal's research activities. You can make a donation of 250,000, to the national arts and culture of Portugal. And the investment categories fall into either number 4, to choose some form of venture capital or investment fund in line with the criteria set by the Portuguese government, or option 5 is you can invest directly into an existing Portuguese company on the basis that that company will create jobs or maintain jobs as a result of your investment. And the vast majority of applications are being done with some form of venture capital or managed investment fund, but all 5 categories are currently active and will remain active for the foreseeable future. Option 1 is, maybe more suitable for those that have an existing business that, you might want to expand into Portugal. Perhaps it's not something that you would do necessarily just to, I think, invest for the golden visa. It would involve a lot of time input, but if you want to expand into Portugal, it may make sense. Again, you can donate should you wish, but for the vast majority of clients not looking to employ staff or gift their money away to the government, then options 4 and 5 may be the route to go. Now, as far as who can apply for the golden visa, anyone that doesn't already have a European passport has the right to apply for the golden visa. However, they must also have a clean criminal record, or at least a relatively clean criminal record. We have had success with some misdemeanors in the past. But as long as the offence doesn't result or wouldn't have resulted in jail time in Portugal, you should be okay, but we'll check that before we begin the process. We'll also need to make an investment into an eligible investment under the criteria set, which we'll come on to shortly. And of course, you need to stay in Portugal for at least 14 days every 2 years, which is, of course, a horrible thing to have to do. To have to come over to Portugal and enjoy the sunshine for 14 days every 2 years. But as long as you can drag yourself to Portugal for that time, then that will suffice. And to clarify, you do not need to live in Portugal. You do not need to become tax resident in Portugal with the golden visa. It is just those 14 days every 2 years. And that will be fine. That will see you through to permanent residency, and it will see you through to citizenship, as long as you can get over for 2 weeks every 2 years. Otherwise, there's no other requirements. There's no age restrictions. You don't have to work in a certain capacity. You don't have to have, a certain income level. It is just those 4 rules to be successful for a golden visa. Also, along with the main applicant, you can add as many family members to the same application as you wish, as long as those family members can be deemed a dependent of the main applicant. And dependents can come by way of a spouse, so you can add a partner, whether married or unmarried is fine. You can include parents above the age of 65, as long as all parents above the age of 65, or younger than 65 if dependent. But if above that age, we don't have to provide any evidence of dependency. And the same for children up to the age of 21. No proof of dependency is required. If your children are over the age of 21, then we can potentially still add them, but some form of dependency proof will be required. Perhaps most commonly proof of enrollment into further education, or financial dependency in some way. Also, if you're listening to this and thinking, actually, my children are a lot older than 21, but I am 65, then you may wish to change who is the main applicant. And what often we can do is to add maybe your child as the main application and add you as their dependents in order to, maximize how many family members you can get on that application. But these topics we'll of course have during an initial meeting, and we can talk through the best way of structuring the application to get the best value for the money. But everyone that's involved follows the same timeline, they have the same benefits, and will be on the same path as the main applicant. But only one investment is needed. The biggest application that I've done to date is for 13 family members. We had step parents and step children all on the same investment. So that one was great value for money. But there you go. That is family. The process involved. So a bit of a busy slide, this one, but in short, this just kind of clarifies that Holborn managed the whole process. But what does happen between now and when you receive the visa is quite a lot of work. And once you begin the process, the first thing to apply for will be your Portuguese tax numbers, shortly followed thereafter by the opening of a Portuguese bank account. The bank account can take a bit of time. Depending on the bank, it can be anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks. But whilst that is being opened, Holborn will start to gather the documentation that's needed for the visa application. And approximately, let's say, 8 to 12 weeks after you begin the process, all should be ready, as long as there's no delays gathering the documents. And then you'll be ready to submit your application. You'll make the investment. The application is submitted online to AIMA, along with all the documents required and the proof of ownership of a qualifying investment or donation. And then, yeah, from that date, you're officially on your way to Portugal. You can reside in the country from when your application has been submitted, and then we shall wait for your biometrics appointment, which, as I mentioned before, at the moment is happening pretty quickly. So we may see that happen within a matter of weeks from when we submit the application. Right now, it's difficult to say exactly how long it will take. I would kind of set expectations on around 12 to 8, sorry, no, I'd say 6 to 12 months now on average. But we may see that happen slightly faster. Otherwise, as soon as the biometrics appointment is done, we will receive the visa card. And this appointment here for the biometrics, where you have your fingerprints and your photo taken, is the only time that you're needed to be present in Portugal during the application process. Unlike other visa options, you don't have to have an address in Portugal. You don't have to go to your home consulate to begin the process. Everything is done remotely up until when we do the biometrics. And again, you'll be accompanied at the time to help with the translation and to make sure you're fully prepared for that appointment. It is a pretty soul-destroying day meeting with AIMA. It's going to be probably the most boring day of your trip to Portugal. But again, yes, you will be accompanied to make it as painless and as smooth as possible. But that is the process, really. That's all that will be, like I said, to submit the application 8 to 12 weeks, and all being well now to receive the visa card 6 to 12 months when the rights to the healthcare system and the education will begin. So hopefully that's all clear. Conscious I'm going at a relatively quick pace at the moment, but we've got quite a lot to get through. But if I do miss anything as we go through, feel free to drop a Q&A in, and we shall come back. But that is the process, and once we complete the visa application, you will then be officially on the path to permanent residency and applying for citizenship. Now, I will make a big disclaimer at this point that, as I mentioned before, the citizenship application should you wish to do that, may be pushed to 10 years rather than 5. We shall find out more on that topic next week. However, the path to permanent residency, which is when you can come out of the investment and when you have permanent rights to Portugal, remains at 5 years regardless. And the path to that stage, as a recap, will take up to 3 months to submit the Golden Visa application. That will be received as a guide within 6 to 12 months thereafter. 2 years thereafter will be the expiry of that initial visa, so we shall renew for a further 2 years. The second renewal will be done in around about 5 years from now. And at that stage, if 5 years have passed from the application, you'll then be able to apply for permanent residency. As of the current laws, you can apply for citizenship as well at that point. But again, that may be subject to change on that aspect. But in any event, the path remains either to permanent residency or citizenship, with the minimum stay of just 2 weeks every 2 years. Just remember that you will need to also study some Portuguese should you wish to progress to permanent residency and or citizenship as well. But otherwise, just keep a clean criminal record and maintain the investment that you have made, and it will be a surefire way through that process. And that is mission complete. That is the treasure at the end of the rainbow, as I say. That is the visa. That is the passport eventually, and then you would have officially the 4th best passport in the world. And the big difference really between permanent residency and citizenship, and I'll recap on this because it often comes up in conversation, but permanent residency gives you full, unadulterated access to live, work, or study in Portugal, as does the temporary visa period as well. Citizenship, however, extends those rights into other countries. So if you wanted to live in Italy, for example, or France, if you have the passport, you would then have that extension into other EU countries. Permanent residency stays in Portugal, but it also does allow you to travel throughout Europe, and you will maintain a 90-day allowance in any European country with permanent residency in any 180-day period. So you can have Portugal as your base, and you can go over to Italy for 90 days, back to Portugal, over to Germany for 90 days, etc. But that 90 days will be extended upon issuance of citizenship if necessary. So there you go. So time-wise, how are we doing for time? We're okay. We're on half an hour. So thank you for your questions submitted so far. I'm just going to run through a few more slides. We'll try and finish up for the kind of next 10, 15 minutes or so, and then we'll jump into some Q&As. But hopefully everything makes sense so far. And yeah, we'll jump in. So I'm going to cover off investing. I'm not going to cover off making donations or setting up a business this evening. Donations, don't require too much detail. They are pretty much what they say on the tin. And again, the formation of a company is more of a legal process and one to cover with an associate of mine. But I'm going to cover off the investment routes. And again, we'll jump in then to some questions. So to qualify for the visa, there are no restrictions on how, or should I say, which industries to invest into. You can invest into any sector in Portugal, apart from real estate. That's the only one. You cannot invest into real estate, which came into effect back in 2023. But otherwise, there are no exceptions. You can invest in whichever sector you so wish. These are some of the more prominent areas. When you are selecting your investment, it is, some general housekeeping to be mindful of. To be first and foremost aware of the security for the capital that you have. I often say that taking the golden visa out of this conversation, the likelihood of everyone looking to invest €500,000 into Portugal right now is probably quite unlikely. It's actually quite rare that my clients have got a lot of experience investing into Portugal, if at all. And one of the caveats to qualify for the visa is that, of course, you have to invest into a Portuguese fund with at least 60% of that money staying in Portugal. And the Portuguese financial system is probably fair to say that it's not quite as robust as the likes of the US or the UK, for example. And it is very important that you have a clear understanding over, not just that the investment qualifies for a visa, but actually, that the capital is, of course, secure. The last thing that you would need is for the visa to cost you 500,000 euros. And you will come across different investment funds and routes on the internet that will tick the box for a visa, but may not tick some other boxes as far as the investment risk or the security for the capital. Now, naturally, as part of our process, we'll make sure that you have all the necessary documentation directly from the investment provider to ensure you have a clear understanding of the key facts. And I will explain clearly those key facts as far as how the capital is secure, what the investment risk is, what the fees are as well. Investment funds in Portugal can be quite expensive compared to other parts of the world. They can have a mixture of setup fees, management fees, exit fees as well. Some funds will have penalties payable if you want to withdraw the capital before a certain time. Sometimes that time is a lot longer than actually what you need for the visa. If you are investing from the US as well, be mindful that any assets that you hold outside of the US have to be reported back to the States from the investment provider. And not all Portuguese fund providers have the facility or the desire, quite simply, to provide that reporting, which can make things quite difficult when it comes to tax time. So all these things need to be factored in. Again, we'll make sure we cover each of these points during our discussions so that you have a clear understanding of all of these points, and like I say, good understanding of what you're getting yourself in for. I'm getting slightly distracted at the moment. In all honesty, there is in the office, one of the offices next door, there is samba lessons. Not been much of a samba dancer myself. I'm not at 6'7". I don't have the dance ability as others may, but distracting me a little bit at the minute. So apologies. Nonetheless, coming back to the rules. So venture capital funds, there's 4 rules to be mindful of. In order for a fund to qualify, it has to be regulated in Portugal by the CMVM, which is the regulatory body here, and it has to be approved and regulated in the country. The fund cannot invest directly or indirectly into real estate. The fund has to invest at least 60% of the capital into Portuguese securities as well. So, for example, you couldn't have a Portuguese fund that invests into the US stock market, or at least not with more than 40% of the capital. Likewise, you couldn't have a US fund that invests into Portugal. It's got to be a Portuguese regulated fund investing predominantly into the country. The minimum subscription is 500,000 euros. And best practice, although not a rule as such, is that the fund has to allow you to remain invested until you've applied for at least permanent residency. You don't want an investment to mature too early and leave you without an investment, and in turn invalidate any visa renewals during the process. So when we're looking at timeframes and maturity dates, it's important to have plenty of time to allow permanent residency rights to be granted before you have to come out of the investment. But that's it. So there are tens of thousands of investment funds, in the universe, but there are a very select list of funds that tick all these boxes. But again, during our meetings, we can access the fund directory, and we can share with you different fund managers that qualify. Have qualifying funds as part of the process. They do come in very much different shapes and sizes. Here you have on screen some of the bigger names within Portugal. The Portuguese banks here And there are various different fund managers to choose from that offer funds that come from very low risk to exceptionally high risk. And ultimately, you choose a fund or selection of funds in line with the preferences that you have. If you like the idea of investing and making lots of money in Portugal, you may have a more adventurous appetite for risk when choosing your investments. If you are more on the side of caution and perhaps not too familiar with Portugal, and just like the idea of something of minimal risk with a lower return, those funds are out there. Holborn are not tied to any fund managers. Holborn can introduce you to well-known and reputable entities in Portugal who can provide different funds to choose from. And yeah, I'm happy to share with you, popular funds at any one time and make those introductions for you. But otherwise, as a guide, the Portuguese funds are, they look very similar to American funds or UK funds, just that they're regulated here and they're predominantly investing in Portugal as well. But they can have different fees, different risk ratings, different returns, depending on the appetite for risk that you decide to take. That will ultimately influence the potential returns from any investment, just like anywhere in the world. But, for a moderately adventurous fund, you can expect, around an average of 8% per year, fluctuating, up or down depending on the funds that you choose. There are investments, as we kind of covered on before briefly as well, that if you don't want the stress of tracking the Portuguese stock markets whilst you have the visa, you have the option of a fixed return that's not correlated to the stock markets, where you know exactly what's going to be paid, albeit the return may be lower overall. You know exactly what it is that you will receive. But there you go. That's a second super brief crash course on, or bird's eye view, shall we say, on funds. But we'll cover off more specifics during one-to-one meetings at your discretion. A couple of examples. A traditional investment fund that would qualify for the visa. It can be a managed fund. This one in particular is provided by the biggest fund manager in Portugal that looks after almost 5 billion euros. Not too big by other, by the US comparison, I suppose. But as far as Portugal, 5 billion euros is about as big as the fund managers come. And it requires 500,000 euros to be invested. The fund manager invests across different sectors with target returns of over 10% per year. You can look at the track record of the fund. You can look at the history of the performance over the past 5 to 10 years. And it will aim to achieve a return over the investment time frame, but is very much dependent on the performance of different aspects. Alternatively, like I say, you can invest into fixed funds. Also, as we come on to the creation of jobs or investing into private equity, the rules here are slightly different to funds. Instead of investing with the 60% in Portugal, you're investing directly into a Portuguese company that can create or maintain jobs. Again, the minimum subscription is 500,000 euros. And an example of a private equity offer is the one we touched on earlier. Again, rather than being dependent on the performance of the stock markets, you can opt to have a fixed return. And this investment, as an example, pays a fixed return of 101,000, which can actually be used towards the 500,000 that needs to be invested for the visa. Which allows the investor to qualify with only 399,000 of their own capital. There is a loan facility available as well, which can drop that down to a contribution of 325 from the investor, and has a fixed exit. So if you invest 399, it simply pays 500,000 back at the end of the term. If you do the 325 option, it gives a fixed 375 back at the end of the term. And yeah, there's one example of how you can invest with a lower capital contribution and a fixed return. Otherwise, yeah, like I say, loads to choose from, various different funds, of all different shapes and sizes, and during meetings, happy to share with you, what fund managers are out there. Okay, but other than that, yeah, coming up to time shortly. Hopefully that all makes sense so far, and it's although at a relatively fast pace, it all makes sense. I'm just going to briefly touch on NHR 2.0, and then we're going to come to some questions in a moment. Thank you for, again, your questions submitted so far. We'll come into those very shortly, and then we should be doing okay. We've very nearly covered everything that you need to know on the golden visa from a very brief bird's eye perspective, at least. Now, NHR 2.0, tax is not the most exciting topic in the world. However, if you are looking to move to Portugal and you are looking to become tax resident in Portugal, there is a unique tax regime on offer for new residents that will allow a tax exemption on your overseas income for up to 10 years. And so I'll just rephrase that. If you are moving to Portugal for the first 10 years that you live here, with this tax regime, you will have no tax to pay on your income from outside of Portugal, which includes any dividend income, any interest from investments, or any capital gains. And for those that have an employed income or self-employed income, also you can apply for a flat rate of income tax of just 20%, as opposed to the progressive rates of tax here in Portugal. So lots of various tax incentives. You may fall into one of those categories, whether it's the flat tax or the tax exemption if you have a rental portfolio, if you have income generating assets abroad, and things like this. And in order to qualify for an HR, there are, again, really 4 requirements in the main. First of all, you can't already be tax resident in Portugal or have been in the past 5 years. It is designed and only applicable for those that are living in Portugal, which is not always the case for the golden visa, because remember, you only have to be here for 2 weeks every 2 years, which is not enough to become a tax resident. But in the future, when you move, and if you are here for over 183 days, you will become tax resident. And it's at that point that you can apply for the tax exemption. But you must contribute in some way, shape, or form to Portugal's economy there's many different ways to do this. But also you can invest into funds that qualify for the golden visa that simultaneously will contribute to Portugal's economy and in turn allowing you to apply for this very unique tax status. So a bit of a mouthful that, and it's a very detailed conversation, and there's a lot of information that's needed, to truly assess whether that is applicable. But it's just a note at this stage that you may wish to consider a selection of investment that would qualify both for the visa and for that tax exemption when you move to Portugal. So again, during an initial meeting, through Zoom, we can cover that if applicable in more detail. But NHR 2.0 has been in place now since January 2024, and they offer some quite exciting tax exemptions for you as you come over. But otherwise, I think we're pretty much there for now. We've covered everything. On other non-golden visa related news, for those that are not aware, I'm expecting my first baby boy in December. So coming up to I think over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I shall be starting to wind down a little bit. This may be the last update for the year. I'll try and sneak one in perhaps before I have baby brain, I think it's referred to as, but we're expecting a baby boy on Christmas Day. As it stands, his name is Max. I'm sure you'll see plenty of Max over there from my photos that I'll share over the coming months. But for now, I thought, how can I link that with the golden visa? And I thought, well, for golden visa applications that are submitted before Max is born on Christmas Day, we're going to include complementary language lessons, which coincidentally I also need to do myself because I don't want to be the only parent in the school that doesn't speak Portuguese for Max. But it is, of course, an offer for everyone that is viewing this evening, and timely there with Christmas Day and hopefully when Max is safely delivered. But if you want to make a note of that offer, when we do speak via Zoom, just remind me of the offer, and we can add in a full complimentary language course, which of course you will need should you wish to apply for permanent residency rights in Portugal. So we can build that in, and yes, you can become fluent and really embed yourself into Portugal in preparation for further down the line. But otherwise, yeah, of course, I hope that was helpful. I always encourage anyone to seek advice from an expert, of course, before you jump into any applications, immigrations, or investments. Always happy to help. Feel free to check out the website there, jsprive.com, which is a sub-site specific to, of course, Portugal's golden visa. And otherwise, thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. And for any further information or any questions that you have, you can now log on to www.jsprive.com, where you'll find all the up-to-date news and latest information that you need on moving to Portugal. Thank you much for watching, and we'll speak to you soon.